Hey YouTube, what's going on, guys? How's everybody doing today? Just uncovered the bike and I slapped down some new fuel line that I got. So I picked up, I had to go get some fuel line for the bike because I didn't have no fuel line. I was fresh out. They didn't have the color that I like, so I ended up with the blue, but that's okay. This is 5mm. So I used the clear. I'm going to tell you guys why I used the clear. I used the clear for two purposes. One, going from the oil tank to the oil pump, and then I use one from going from the petcock to your carburetor and the filter in between. And the reason why I use clear is because I can look down and see that I have oil flowing through the line, and I can see that I have fuel going from the petcock to the bike. Makes it a lot nicer. So we got the tank done. It's not bolted down yet, it's just sitting on there. See, I gotta go get that bolt at the hardware store. I have not done that yet. We got the tank cleaned out. It's been, what do you call it there? Acid washed, flushed out. It's perfect. We got that part done. Tank looks amazing. And then I'll show you. So I got the ultrasonic cleaner out and I cleaned the carburetor. So I got the carburetor all nice and cleaned out, all put back together, and it's RTG, ready to go. This is concerning to me because this is the carburetor that came off the bike, and it's got the plug on the side here, which tells me this is a newer carburetor than the bike actually came with. So this is from a 96 to 2001 carb. So at some point they replaced the carburetor on the bike, and the jet is an 80. It should be a 77.5. So they put an 80 jet in that carb. I'm not complaining, and the fact that it's a newer carburetor is even better. So since the ultrasonic cleaner I have is so big, you can get an idea of how big it is. That's the diameter of the ultrasonic cleaner. That's one carburetor. That's two. I can literally put 6 carburetors in this thing. So this is a pretty good size ultrasonic cleaner. But I want to show you the difference between the newer carburetors and the older ones. Now, I've done a ton of videos on cleaning, rebuilding, and all that type of stuff on here. Actually, move this up here for the lighting purposes. Okay. So, the carburetor on the right, this one right here, is the one that should be on it. See how it's got the air jet in the middle? Right there, on the side there in the front? That's the air jet. The air jet on the newer carburetors has been moved to underneath that plug. You just take a punch, you knock out that plug, and then your air jet, that screw, is located under here. Why is that better? It's not. There's no difference. It really doesn't make any difference on the carburetor at all. One of the other notable parts that you might notice is the choke assembly. Show you this. Okay, on some of these carburetors, not this one, but there'd be that style plug right there would be on this side, and that there would be a hole. See where it's all dimpled in right there? There would be a hole that way going straight through, and it would suck the air for the choke that way. This is just a faster, more direct way. So I like this style better. Now, a lot of people ask me, what is the difference between a needle jet and an air jet? Okay, I'll explain that to you guys real easily. An air jet is in the front of the carburetor, and this right here doesn't control fuel. This controls air going through that jet right there and coming out through the venturi. A needle jet is located either on the top of a carburetor, or at the bottom of a carburetor, or on the side of the carburetor in the back, and that adjusts fuel. So an air jet in the front or on the front side is for air. If it's in the back, it's for fuel. So there's a little difference on the two. So we're going to keep with the carburetor that came with the bike, the newer one. We're going to put that back on. I think someone robbed some parts off of a newer bike at some point in the process of all that because of the cables that are used on the bike. So we're going to go ahead with the new carburetor on there. But this is cleaned, the fuel system's clean, and technically I could throw this on the bike and just fire it up, but we're not going to do that. Okay. The reason why we're not going to do that is because we have a lot of issues on this side of the bike. One being that the Kickstarter is not working properly, and the fact that there's all kinds of silicone, or as I call it, silicone, all the way around that top cover there. So we're going to replace that gasket in the back there, and we have a lot of incorrect screws. And you guys know me, I don't like stuff that doesn't belong unless I personally put it there. And since I didn't personally put it there, it's not correct. I don't like it. So we're going to go ahead and change it. So we're going to start pulling some stuff off this bike and yanking the stuff out. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is drain the oil. Underneath the bike there is a drain plug, and it's a 17 millimeter. And this oil is coming out of here is brand new. The oil plug was not tight. It was not put on tight. Was it put on properly? Which is fine because we're, changing it all up. But you have to remove all the oil first before you go any further. And then we're just going to keep plugging away at it. So we're going to take this time and see if we can put this rubber back on the Kickstarter. Turns. Yeah, it's going to have to be warmed up with a, what do you call it there? Heat gun. Removing the Kickstarter. So here's a little trick for you. I take a flathead screwdriver and I just tap it in there like so. Not too much. You don't want to break the cast iron, but it'll expand it and then you can wiggle it off. Now I'm going to expand you guys up, rotate you over, and bring you down a little bit. There you go. So right here on the clutch cable there's a little plastic tab. You want to stick your screwdriver in back of it and straighten it up a bit. Okay? That way you can release it. It'll release the cable. Now notice how I took the two screws off the adjuster. No matter how many times you take these screws off and put them back on, you're not going to change the adjustment. The adjustment's still set. Also too, note that there is a little washer on each one of the screws because this piece is plastic. Okay? You set that off to the side. Now the cable should pop through. It is missing a little spring, which I have. Not a big deal there. Okay, so now we got the clutch cable undone. And we're going to go undo the oil cable. So the oil cable, I'm going to expand you up a little bit more if I can. Yep, I can. Bring it back down this way. I'll show you guys. There's a little tab right here. Take a flathead screwdriver on the nut. Pry it back a little bit. Don't go crazy. Don't bend it out straight. Take your hand, pull it back, and then it frees it up. Now the cable's undone, and you can pull your throttle cable. Nice. We'll move this out of the way. Okay, so now we have the cables missing the rubber grommet that goes in between here. We have that. We're missing the little clip that holds the cable to this. We have that. We're missing the rubber that goes at the bottom of the carburetor. We have that. Okay. take the old line off. Now I'm going to loosen up these screws if I can. Yep, came right out. Just gonna loosen everything up before I take them out. And now we're just gonna start popping screws. So I'm gonna shrink you guys down so you guys can see what I'm doing. And we got a bee around here. It's awful. All these screws are different lengths. When you take off this cover right here, you're actually removing some of the screws. Just keep that in mind when you guys are taking them off, and be careful, okay? Because you don't want to mix up your screws. That one's going to need a longer one, and that's it for screws on that. And let's see if I can get some of these flatheads out. I think they're the wrong ones. Don't think they bought metrics. Oh, they're not bad. They're better than I thought they would be. Alright, so I took the screws off. You didn't need to see me removing screws. So they are the proper length and they are metric, but they're flathead screws. You can use these. I'm not going to. I'm going to use the original ones. The type of screwdriver that you're going to need to take all the case screws apart, and it's written on a lot of them, is a P3, PH3. So when you look at a screwdriver and it says, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it says PH3 on it. This is a PH3 by 6-inch screwdriver. Good heavy duty screwdriver with a really good tip. Comes in handy. You might notice that I don't use my impact gun anymore. My impact hammer, I mean, you put it on and you crack them all loose. Because I have this. This is a handy tool if you're working on motorcycles, dirt bikes, or whatever. This is an impact gun, and it's an M3. And this thing right here has torque. It doesn't destroy screwdrivers, and it's very, very powerful. So it comes in handy when you're working on these things. So we got the oil drained out of it. And what do you call it? All the screws are removed, so we're going to try removing it and see what we're looking like in the inside. Of course, it's probably going to be very high because that looks like some pretty solid RTV silicone. I can only imagine what kind it is. Yeah, that's going to be on there for a bit. Alright, see if I can get this in the frame here. Okay, we do it that way, I guess. I'm using a PH2 screwdriver, Phillips number 2 screwdriver, because it fits inside the holes. Put this inside here like this, not to the thread point, but before that you can move the thing around. Put a flathead screwdriver in there. Don't press on it, but push on the part that's open, and it will pry it out. I was using the screwdriver, the flathead, as a fulcrum point, so I put it back here on the side that was stuck, and I pushed on the side that was pulled out, and then it just pops it off. Okay, we're going to lose the oil pump here. And that is all there is to that. Pulling that apart, and now we got the clutch cover off. Looks pretty clean inside there, guys, huh? Pretty impressed with it. Alright, so the problem with this is the clutch, the Kickstarter will not retract. Okay? So we're going to take a look and see why. don't see anything incriminating. And that's back to being forward, and then it kicks the engine over this way. So it looks to me like something is definitely wrong, or in wrong, because I can't pull. I should be able to pull that spring off with no issues, and I can't even budge it. So let's just see if we can get the spring out at all. I don't know where the spring is at, personally. Pulling the white insert out. There we go. It's all the way that way. That's all the way forward. Right there. I don't see anything bad about the spring. It looks like we got some damage on the inside of this motor. There's a Kickstarter tab in there. Okay, so there's a little screw that stops the starter from hitting it. Okay, and because it was incorrectly installed, it chewed into it a little bit, but it's nothing to really be concerned about. I do have a little premature wear right here on the engine where the gear goes in, but the gear also looks good. So I'm going to say run it the way it is because it still looks decent. They have had this engine completely split apart because they had to do new bearings and everything else, and that's who did the silicone. I could see it on the whole inside here. So they had this case split apart before, and just kind of the problem is when you bring a bike this old to a shop that works on newer dirt bikes, they don't know what they're doing. And they think they know what they're doing, even if you brought it to a Kawasaki dealer. The problem is, most technicians nowadays don't work on these old rotary valve engines. So they tend to use the wrong parts and pieces, like the silicones. This silicone is not what you're supposed to use, this gray stuff, when you're putting together a case. You're not supposed to use it on a clutch cover. You're not supposed to use it when you're putting two halves of a motor together. And you're probably sitting there going, Kevin, why is that? And the reason for that is because this silicone right here has a thickness to it. And if it's not even all the way around, now this plate is sitting at a slight angle. That can cause a warping on your clutches because now you're pulling at an angle. It can cause premature wear on a lot of different items. Kickstarter shaft, shifter shafts, depending upon what it is. You always want to use the proper gaskets and the proper silicones and that sort of thing. Now, when you're putting these cases together, you're supposed to put a very thin layer. The book requires a thin layer. And the reason for that is because the half tolerances are so close together. When you put a thick layer of silicone on there, now the case is spread apart and the crank can move back and forth. On the halves also, the shifter shafts can move back and forth. There's actually an adjustment on a little plug on the other side of the motor when you're putting these things together. So that's the purpose for me doing this channel, is to teach you guys the rights and the wrongs. Silicone on a clutch cover is not a good idea. You should always use the gasket. And the gaskets are not much my area. People, oh, I have to order it. Then order it. Suck it up. Order it. You know, I mean, I don't want to do it either, but I have to, you know. So It is easier and cheaper to run out to the thing and get a tube of silicone. However, it is not the proper way. You could end up with leaks. You could end up with problems. You know, so I'm going to let this screw here slide. But if I have any problems with this down the road, I mean, I haven't even heard this motor run yet. So if I do have any issues, I'm going to have to separate this, take this engine off and separate the case and fix that bolt. And it's still okay right now, but future it's going to need to be redone. So I want to hear this thing run. I want to ride this bike. Now I'm having a problem with the spring, the starter spring, and I'm trying to get that in there to find out what's going on with it, because there's something going on. I might have to separate this case anyway. So anyway, guys, I'm going to stop it right here for now, and I will talk to you. I'm going to take a break, and I'll be back for another video. Thanks for watching.